Welcome to the Paper Trail, where we follow the journey, my journey, through the world of a CEO of a mortgage note fund. I'm Chris Seveney, and after years of buying, managing, and selling notes with Seveney Investments, I'm here to share the real stories behind the deals. What went right, what went wrong, and what I wish I knew earlier. From non-performing loans to seller financing to private lending, this show is about more than strategies, about growing your business, learning to follow the paper trail, and doing the due diligence that separates the pros from the rest. Now, let's hit the trail running. Today, I'm joined by Michael Fordham, the founder and president of Silverstream Funding. It's a boutique private lending firm that has a really interesting approach. We talk about the private lending space, what you should and shouldn't be doing, and get excited about having Michael come speak at the Paper Trail Conference that we're hosting September 18th to 20th in Chandler, Arizona. A little bit more about Michael was he practiced corporate securities law at JP Morgan Chase and other institutions before, during, and after the financial crisis. We talk about his first deal, which was really interesting because he really went all in. And we share insights of the do's and don'ts, not only in private lending, which Michael's focused on, but just investing in the note space as well. So hope you really thoroughly enjoy this episode and look forward to seeing you all September 18th to 20th in Chandler, Arizona. Take care. Michael, how are you doing today?
I'm doing awesome. Very good. Thank you very much. Happy to be here. Thanks, Chris.
Yes, it's a Friday, and man, my energy level this week today has been, I think, sucked out of me from this entire week. Has been a long week, so.
It's been long for me too. I on my emails, I say, have a great weekend at the end, just because I know that I wish the best for the people I've been working with.
Yeah.
So, anyway, yeah.
So let's kind of dive right into it, and let's start, talking about, your story and how'd you get involved in investing in the first place?
Well, so I used to live in New York City, and at the time, Harlem, which is part of Manhattan, it was there. A lot of the buildings were abandoned. There was a lot of deferred maintenance, and at the time, there were also people who were starting to fix up their homes, their townhouses usually, and investors who were buying them. And what I did is I spent 1 year, probably it was 1 year, probably every weekend, walking around Harlem and asking the people who live there and the investors and the workers questions and trying to do my due diligence. And what I ended up doing, you asked me what my first investment was.
Yeah.
That I bought a commercial building in Harlem. And it was a
Wow, that's a big bite of the apple.
Listen, I didn't have any idea how much risk I was taking on. It worked out so well, and I'm just a little bit lucky. But let me tell you, so this was a commercial building. It was 25 feet wide and 50 feet deep, so it wasn't that huge, right? So we gut renovated it. At one point, you could stand in the basement and look all the way up to the sky. That's how gut renovated we did.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's really cool. And I tried to do it very inexpensively, and so we had exposed brick and big spaces, and I ended up getting the highest rents per square foot in Harlem. I turned it into a residential building and lived on the top floor. So
Nice.
so
So what year was that?
What's that?
What year was that?
Oh my gosh, it was like 2001.
Okay.
Around there. Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
So back in the day.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So that's really interesting. Wow. Starting your first. Wow.
It was crazy. It was
Oh
totally
yeah. I'm
crazy.
just like.
It was crazy.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah. No,
So,
I bought it for $500,000. I got a $10,000 loan from my uncle. I got $500,000 loan, and then I sold it later and made a lot of money. But I wish I
wow.
had it
I
because I
mean
love it.
that's insane. And I usually roll a next question. What's something about your journey most people don't know but probably should? And I mean, you've already like mind blown me with that first answer of starting out with a dilapidated property like that in Harlem. But what's something else about the journey?
Well, okay, so something that people don't know about me is I used to work on Wall Street. I'm a corporate and securities attorney, worked on Wall Street. I worked at two of the top New York City white shoe law firms. We did IPOs, initial public offerings,
Mm,
for with a lot of the
mm,
major investment banks and a lot of large companies, both here and in Latin America.
mm,
And that was very exciting. Have our clients on the cover of Wall Street Journal, that sort of thing.
mm.
But let me tell you, if I may,
Yeah.
because we're talking about things that I wish people would know about me, but so
Hmm.
whatever. But so then I worked at JP Morgan, and at JP Morgan, I oversaw all the benchmark debt issuances of the entire firm. So
Oh,
billions,
wow.
billions of dollars worth of bonds, right?
Hmm.
And you know what's interesting? So I have a private lending firm. That's what I do, right? We
Yep.
lend we lend
Hmm.
privately. So it's interesting though because it's very similar to what I did at JP Morgan, and let me tell you why.
Yep.
It's so what we do is we have funding partners that lend money mostly to house flippers, right?
Hmm.
And then we have the security, which is a first lien on the property.
Hmm.
So think about the bonds that I was working on, these billions of dollars worth of bonds. You have who's your investor? Well, it's an institutional investor instead
Hmm.
of our funding partners and us who do the investing.
Hmm.
What do they get? They get a bond. Bond, it's an IOU, right? It's an
Yeah, it's a
IOU.
note. It's really a note. I
Yeah,
mean,
and
it's a
it's
debt instrument. Yeah.
yeah, and it's very similar to what we do. I mean, we have a note, a mortgage or a deed of
Hmm.
trust or something. It's
Hmm.
basically an IOU.
Yep.
The institutional investors, want to get paid every month or usually every quarter or whatever, and get
Hmm.
their money back at the end.
Hmm.
And then their security is the credit of the company that they believe
Hmm.
the company is going to be fine, is going to pay its debts,
Yep.
and we use the have a first lien on the
Hmm.
property. So,
Yep.
um, Chris, can I tell you one other thing about this?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so this is a fun time, and nobody knows about me. I'll be really quick. But I was actually at JP Morgan in 2008 when Lehman Brothers fell, and when we acquired Bear Stearns. It was really an extraordinary situation, and I got to play a role in that. Also, I worked for a Swiss bank in Zurich for several years during the time when the U.S. government was going with criminal sanctions against the Swiss banks because they were. Remember? Do you remember when you used to be able to have a Swiss bank account?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
People.
Well, I
So
never
guys,
had one
America.
because I didn't have the money, but yeah, I knew
Yeah.
you could have one.
Well,
That was like
yeah.
the joke of like a Cayman Islands one. It was Swiss and Cayman Islands, right?
That's what you do now. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but so the U.S. government was going after these
Hmm.
banks, and it was quite so. I mean, I did work on other things too,
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
anyway, people don't know that I did have a big finance and legal career, and that's
So,
fine because now I have
now,
the
yeah.
private lending firm, and that's what
No,
I do. Yeah.
so a few things I'll mention. I bet you um the rate on the bond is much lower of what JP Morgan pays than what you pay your investors, I
You're
would have to guess.
you're darn right. You're darn
Uh,
right. Except
so,
for during in 2008, I remember there was one bond that we put out. It was actually a stock certificate that
mhm,
had it was 12%.
okay.
And I should
Now,
have just bought it, but we were so scared that everything was going to fall apart in the
mhm.
financial system.
So I was a part of a group when I was working in 2008 and 9. I was working for a very large commercial contractor. And at the time, they were going around buying up a lot of
Mm.
smaller
Mm.
contractors that were going under because they could step in, take over the projects. And,
Right, right, right.
I got to be a part of the teams that like acquisition teams and go in and actually peel back the onion and really look at some of how these companies were financially operating. And man, some of the stuff was just mind blowing for what I've seen. When you were at JPM and going, as part of that Bear Stearns, was that kind of your role too? Were you like in any involvement in regards to like, I don't want to use the term auditing, but like reviewing what it is you were looking to acquire or take over?
To some degree. So I oversaw all the bond issuances. I
Yep.
remember someone asking me at some point, so what bonds does Bear Stearns have?
Yeah.
How are we going to find out? It's not that hard, but
Mhm.
so I remember going over. So
Mhm.
I took some of that on. I didn't play
Yep.
a super major role in that, but I
Okay.
remember going. It was across Bear Stearns. It was across the street. I went
Yep.
across the street. I found where the
Mhm.
person who does my job at Bear Stearns sits, and
Mhm.
she wasn't there.
Mhm.
I saw some. I borrowed or took some
Mhm.
notebooks that looked like they
Yeah.
had some good information. But yeah.
Yeah,
That's
okay.
that was a crazy
Uh,
time. It's crazy.
so coming from your background in industry, finance, securities attorney, you are much more sophisticated. Uh, I'm putting words in my own mouth right now. Much more advanced and sophisticated than I'd say the average, private lender. Because a lot of people come from real estate, they get tired landlords. They're not as, they're very savvy individuals, but again, it's a different mentality and mindset. And, being in the finance, having the background you have, everyone's got some type of core investment philosophy. And I'm curious, if you could quickly describe yours, what would it be and where did it come from?
Well, thank you for the compliment. My philosophy, of course, the number one philosophy of investing is don't lose money, right? But my
Yeah.
philosophy is to be humble.
Hmm.
So you just gave me a great compliment, and let me tell you,
Hmm.
when I started being a private lender, I needed to learn a lot, and
Hmm.
loaned out my own money before I would take anyone's money to loan out for a number of years. Um, it's really well, in our private lending, we only take borrowers by referral.
Hmm.
But even so, I will interview them, of course. And if they are telling me that everything's always fine and they've never made a mistake and they've never lost money, if they're not humble, the answer is
Hmm.
being humble, being a little bit scared too.
Hmm.
Then I think there's a problem. I lend money to a number of people who I know have a lot of cash. Now
So the best borrowers.
yeah, well, they're borrowing from me for high rates. Why are they doing
Yeah.
that? Because they're humble.
Both.
They know that things can happen and they want to have that cash there. So,
Mhm.
and I feel like for me, I never want to, even though we're doing great, but I
Mhm.
never want to think I'm cool. I want to be a little bit
Mhm.
scared. I want to be looking
Mhm.
around because things,
Mhm.
for me, it's humility.
Yeah,
But
no, that's great. And we always, internally say the best borrowers are the ones who want it but don't need it and are not desperate for it. Because like you said, we've
yeah,
had borrowers who have seven figures and, accounts and stuff, but they're getting a loan and it's like, oh, why are you getting a loan from us? And
interesting.
it's
Yeah,
basically it's like, well, we were going to go get a bank loan. It takes too long. It's too much effort. And we've got our money tied up or, it's invested somewhere that we could shift it around, but it's more work and it's like, hey, look, this is the easier path to take. And and if they can't get it, then it's like, okay, we'll use our own funds. But it's borrowers that, and then we have borrowers on the other spectrum who are have properties that are cash flowing negative and they're basically cash poor and they're like, I just need money, and they're trying to refinance and
yeah,
leverage every asset they have to the tilt, and those usually don't end up well.
yeah, yeah.
So then, you kind of, I think, answered the next question I was going to ask is, principle you live by in business that guides how you treat everybody. And you basically, I mean, answered that with humility, but I don't know if you have something else as well.
Well,
Hmm.
so I would say reputation, doing what you say you're going to do.
Yeah.
May I tell a story?
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And I'm
Okay,
just
so
laughing right now because I've been on podcasts and everything that you're saying is basically like, I did not prep him for any of this because we always talk about humility, being humble, and just do what you say you're going to do is like what we always say. So I'm just kind of
oh,
internally, if you see me
okay.
laughing, that's why. But no, go ahead, tell your story.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
okay. Well,
Mm.
that's really interesting. I used to be a Sunday school teacher, all right, a long time ago.
Okay.
And I got a question, and someone raised their hand and asked me a question. I don't remember the context, but
Hmm.
New York lawyers were known to be slimy and dishonest. And this person asked the question, well, Michael, how do you keep your integrity while being a New York City lawyer? And the question just kind of took me aback because I was working for these major law firms that do
Hmm.
everything right, and it's all about reputation, 100%. And I
Hmm.
learned that. It's all about doing what you say you're going to do. It's all about integrity. And I would say that is the case for me. I mean, doing what you say you're going to do.
Hmm.
I had a borrower who called me on an Easter Sunday at 4 o'clock. I was at my cousin's house, and the private lender had said no at the last minute, and he
Hmm.
said, "Can you lend us $700,000 tomorrow?" And we did it, which was really cool.
Oh,
So,
wow.
it's a good story
Yeah.
for that reason.
Hmm.
But the private lender didn't pulled out at the last minute and it was for I don't it was for a stupid reason.
Hmm.
And I will not do that. It's all
Mhm.
reputation doing what you say you're going to
Mhm.
do. That is
So,
it. 100%, 100%.
yeah, I agree completely. And I was again internally joking when you talked about New York attorneys and kind of slime balls and stuff.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
from
yeah.
Massachusetts and I'm a Boston sports fan, so we think everybody from New York is like that. So don't worry, it's not just the attorneys, it's everybody in New York
Yeah,
when you're
yeah,
from Boston.
yeah.
But we have you speaking at the our Paper Trail conference. I always like to ask people, why it's important for you to be part of the event.
Sure. You know what? I'm very excited, genuinely very excited to participate. I have a kind of a philosophy and a feeling for two reasons. I kind of have a philosophy and feeling of abundance. A
Hmm.
lot of people taught me. I have a lot of private lender friends and
Hmm.
attorneys, and people helped me learn a lot before I felt comfortable lending my own money and then also
Hmm.
our investors' money. And so my I love sharing and I've been on a number of forums and stuff. So number one reason I'm thrilled is because I love sharing knowledge. I feel like I love to give
Hmm.
back and actually get a kick out of that. I do it a lot with emails and texts that I get and stuff. Number two reason is I'm thrilled to be at the conference itself. As I look at the schedule of what's happening, I'm realizing I'm getting some humility. I'm
Hmm.
realizing what I don't know about notes, and I wonder which classes I'm going to go to myself. So
Hmm.
yeah, I'm really thankful to be invited.
Yeah, and
So thank
what's
you.
interesting,
Thank you
well,
very
A,
much.
you're welcome. And, I'll tell people who are listening. And for example, this is the first time Michael and I have held a conversation for people,
Yes.
on this.
Yeah.
And it's about networking too, meeting other people, seeing what they're doing, hearing their stories, and
Yes.
getting
Yes.
that constant theme because the people we're bringing to this event and speaking, I think you're going to hear a lot about humility. You're going to hear a lot about doing the right thing. And like Michael mentioned earlier, he started, I started, most of the people who you're going to hear started with their own money investing,
Yeah.
figured out the kinks, and then started to grow by then understanding the business and then possibly bringing in some outside investors. Now, there's other ways people may do it, which is they might start with trying to bring that, outside investor money first. That's really not my philosophy
Yeah.
because you're learning on someone else's dime, and real estate is
Yeah.
a game where you can lose a
Yeah.
lot of money, especially if you don't know what you're doing.
I'm so with you, Chris. I'm so with you. You see a lot of it online. You see a lot of it in life, and it's just
Hmm.
it's a cringe. It's a cringe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's so easy today compared to like you bought your first property in 2001. If you wanted to go raise money in 2001, you're knocking on doors. I mean, you may have had. Actually, no, you didn't even have Blackberries at that point in time. I'm trying to think like that. I mean, I was buying a house then, and I literally remember going to the real estate's office and like pulling the flyers because I mean, you had AOL, but you couldn't really house shop. So if you're trying to raise money back then compared to today, it's so easy to create a online, you know, uh, influence of yourself, but it's
Yeah.
also very easy to fake one, which we
Yeah.
saw a lot of people do over the last few years.
Yeah.
Uh,
100%.
so without spoiling your whole session, what's one thing you hope attendees who feel, learn, think differently about the space after hearing you speak?
Um, you asked for one thing. May I give you two things?
You can give me three if you want.
I
So
only have two. I only have two.
okay.
Two things I hope
Mm.
come across. One is private lending is extraordinarily profitable. From an economic standpoint, it's an inefficient market. In
Mhm.
inefficient markets, you can find great profitability. Where else can you get a 12% return
Mhm.
with collateral that is a first lien on property? Well, where else can you get a 12% return with that type of collateral? So
Well,
number
also
one,
with somebody, sorry, also with somebody who's got like a 780 credit score. I want to throw
yes,
that in there as well because
yes,
we invest in the
100%.
defaulted loan, which we can go down a different road. But that's the other component to that is you're giving it to somebody with very excellent credit.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. And a personal guarantee.
Yep.
So, I mean, where else can you get 12%? I mean, it's super profitable. That's number one. Number two. Number two is a pet peeve of mine. Some people say if you're gonna, okay, you can be a passive private lender or an active one, right? People say, oh, you can actively go ahead and lend your money out and be a private lender, and it's really easy. I disagree with that. That is not true. I think that's I think it's fraud. It drives me crazy. So, well, my opinion is that you can do it, but it's going to take a lot of work. You need to understand insurance darn well. You need to understand title darn well. There are a number of things that you need to understand before you use your money or certainly someone else's money, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
those are the two things that I help. It's very profitable, but it's also something you need to figure out.
You need to figure it out. And anybody that tells you it's, easy and, can it be, it's less passive, I think. I mean, it's more passive than certain other aspects of real estate, but you have to be a lot more knowledgeable. Like I came from a commercial real estate development background.
Mhm,
And so I knew I could build with my eyes closed. I could manage a construction project with my eyes closed. But when I got started, I could not for the life of me tell you the difference. Like the assignment went with the mortgage, the launch went with the note. Like I would confuse all the
Yeah,
collateral, I would confuse
yeah,
everything. And there is a lot to learn in this space that you just can't wing it. So,
yeah. Do you know what I like about what you said is
mm,
you changed what I said a little bit and you said there's a lot to learn, but then it's easy. And that's really a good distinction because
mhm.
yes, it can become easy, but it's not easy to start and you should
No, and
think
it's
it's easy.
it's still not easy because I'll give you a perfect example of I bought a loan 2 months ago
Uh-huh.
and we had the servicing transferred. The borrower ended up selling the property and they sold the property and we called the title company and we're like, hey, where's the money? And they're like, oh, we already wired the money. The Oh, so we were the third lender. So when I, not third position, we were the third lender to own the loan, still first position. But the
Okay.
first lender, the borrower contacted the first lender. The first lender was like, oh, okay, here's the payoff. Title company kind of, I don't know what they did, whole nother story, but they wired them the money. So now we're trying to chase down, like, where's the money? Where'd it go? Title, like, what are you doing? So all of a sudden it's like, whoa, time out. And this isn't something also that you should deal with yourself. You need to get an attorney involved to,
Yes, yes, yes.
really. So what I found with this business too, because I've matured into some of the private lending side of things,
Mhm.
is knowing how to do it is, and I'm just going to put a rough number, 50%. Knowing the people to go to when they're, what hits the fan, or you need a resource or need something, is
Yeah,
another 50%.
yeah,
If you need to
yeah.
put insurance on a property because somebody defaults, if you have a title issue or you need an attorney, or if you need somebody to get a quick appraisal done, or something that is so important. So.
Yeah, 100%. You need a team, not
Oh,
necessarily with you, but you need
oh
to.
yes. And it
Yeah.
takes a long time to build that team. It's not something that, it's about building a team and building a relationship with that team. So,
Yes. Yeah.
so you've worked I mean, you've likely worked with all different types of investors. In your opinion, how do you, if you were to describe, and close your eyes and say that makes a great investor, what would it look like?
Okay. If you're an active investor
Hmm.
as opposed to a passive investor,
Yep.
if you're an active investor, it's to me it's all about due diligence, just period. I mean, easy
Mhm.
peasy, all about due diligence. Know
Yep.
what the heck you're doing. If you're
Hmm.
a passive investor, when we have our funding partners, a new person who wants to us
Hmm.
to help them fund a loan,
Hmm.
we go through and we explain what we do,
Hmm.
and they understand it. Sometimes, more or less, sometimes more, sometimes less.
Hmm.
But the thing that they're really investing in that I realize and talk about humility is they're investing in me because
Hmm.
no matter what the investment is,
Hmm.
I'm the guy who's handling their money.
Hmm.
And I am humbled and just when I think about that, it's an extraordinary privilege that
Hmm.
people trust me enough to do that. And it's about reputation, right?
Yep.
Reputation. And so what I think if you're a passive investor for anything, understand what you're doing, but it's really the person you're investing with because that's what's going to happen, good
You
or
got to
bad.
feel comfortable with them. And I'm on Bigger Pockets a lot, and I saw somebody post something today that was invested in a self storage, and it's been 3 or 4 years. they've never gotten a distribution. They barely get any information. And, a few people, they're not getting what they should, in my opinion, just my opinion. And, certain people went on and they kind of like, yeah, well, I saw it was a really good marketing video and this and that. And, I'm always a fan of, if you're going to give somebody money, try and at least get a conversation with them, get to know them, and make sure it's not a sales pitch like you're trying to buy a car. Understand their philosophy, their business, and what their experience is. And from usually within, 15, 20-minute conversation, your spidey senses, if you're a good read on people, can kind of give you oh my God, this person only talked about how great they are and everything. If you've got, and this was hilarious back in the day when we were building our house a little over 10 years ago, we were getting subcontractors on board. And I always tell anybody that's looking to get any type of work, if somebody walks through your property and all they're saying is how great they do the job and how great they've done this and they've done that and everything else, don't even ask for a bid from them. Don't even get it. But you want the guy asking, oh, what do you think you want to do here in this room? What do you want to do? Or, what's your schedule? Or what's, asking legitimate questions about how they're going to do the work and not just trying to sell you on how awesome they are. And I find that same thing in investing as well.
Yeah, 100%. And there are a lot of people who are very charismatic. You have to be careful.
Oh, yes,
Some
a lot.
people are really good, so you have to kind
Yep.
of,
So,
I mean, like you said, spidey sense.
yeah, exactly.
Very
So I think you kind of may have just hit on it, but what's one mistake you often see newer investors make and you try to help avoid them? Now let's just stick with active.
active investors.
Yeah.
Going too big, too fast. Is that how you say too big, too fast? Yeah.
Yep.
I had a friend who, through a divorce, got a home worth $1 million. He lived in another state. He said, "Hey, I want to make a lot of money. I'm going to flip this $1 million house." And he'd never done it before. Very smart man in his own profession, but he'd never done it before. I told him, don't do that. I mean, house flippers, as sexy as some of these deals that you can see and profitable, house flippers,
It's hard.
should start small because you're going to make mistakes. Even if you think you know everything, humble, remember,
Yep.
you're going to make mistakes and you may lose money. And it's better to start small. It'd be frustrating to not go faster, but trust me, going too big too soon is not advisable.
No.
Not
And
advisable.
and it's people who, when I also see like they want to go from like 1 to 100 deals in a year, I'm like, get your first few done and get them exited, and then take what you learn. Perfect example is back in the day, like we were building a 286 unit apartment building. And, we'd always, with the architect and say, hey, look, if you make a mistake in, one unit, that unit type goes through this building 50 times. You just made that mistake 50 times. So you want to make sure that, you get one, like that's why you do a mock-up, in construction, you build a mock-up to see, does it work? Does it fit? Investing, if you're a private lender, do the mock-up, do the first deal, get through it, and then understand, don't do 10 deals and realize, oh my God, I forgot to charge. Like I know somebody recently did a loan and they had 0% interest on it because they had a higher price. Now they're trying to sell it and there's no default provisions. There's no default interest. There's no late fees. So I'm like, and it's in a state that's a very lengthy foreclosure process. I'm like, technically, this borrower, it's got 0% interest. So they could just make the payment and the loan matures. Like it's going to take you a year they could even stop paying. And it's, your money's just getting thrown away. So,
yeah.
Okay, as we enter our lightning round.
Okay,
you ready? So,
have you seen the ones where they do it with celebrities and watch them go around their house?
No, I haven't.
What about this? What about this?
Oh,
Anyway,
okay.
I'm not a celebrity, so I'll just be here.
So,
Okay, go ahead.
What's one word you would use to describe the current real estate market?
Uncertain.
Yep, definitely would agree with that.
Uncertain.
One thing you've changed your mind about in the last year?
More due diligence. We do more due diligence than we used to.
Yeah, and
100%. 100%.
You know what's funny? Like everyone hears due diligence, and then you like realize what it is, and then that deal I just talked about, like we bought the loan, they said, there is nothing I could do about that in any way, shape, or form. But now I'm trying to figure out as part of due diligence, like, oh, if there's a loan that's on the market for sale and we see something, like, do we try and figure out if there's a title company involved and just let them know after, it's like your due diligence process always get refined and always continue to grow.
Yes, yes.
Yep.
We have, I know this is a lightning round, but we have a processes and procedures manual, and I
Mm-hmm.
haven't looked at it in a while, but every time we learn something, I tell some of the awesome people who work with me, add that. We need to have that.
We 100% are
Needs
constantly
to be
updating.
there.
Yep,
Yeah, you
exactly.
can't just think you're going to
Oh,
remember everything. Yeah.
and one person you would like to thank for your success.
Um, probably my father. He's a great man. He
Mm-hmm.
hasn't helped me at all in investing, but he's helped me in
Life in general, right?
hard work, the way you
Yep.
treat people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's my
Oh,
dad, I would say.
okay. Nope. I would say the same thing.
Is
So,
that right? That's
yeah.
beautiful. That's
So,
really
and
beautiful.
unfortunately, I lost my dad about 7 years ago now. It's been a while. In
Sorry.
the age of 69 years old. So,
Good
young
news.
guy. So,
Good news.
well, Michael, thank you for coming on this
Okay.
episode. If
Yes.
people want to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to find you or contact you?
Sure. The name of our private lending firm is called Silverstream Funding. So you
Okay.
can look at silverstreamfunding.com. Or if you want to give me a call, like I said, I believe in abundance. Feel
Mhm.
free to give me a call. My number, it's still a New York number. Don't kill me. All right.
Mhm.
My number is 646
Mhm.
406 1115. 646 406 1115. Yeah,
Yeah.
feel free
Yeah.
to give me a call. Remind me that it's about
Mhm.
this podcast, so I don't think you're right.
Yeah.
And no, I'd be
And
happy to
for
talk.
those listening, we'll have all that information in the show notes.
Okay. Oh, good, good, good.
Yeah, and I just want to thank you, Michael, for coming on, and thank you everyone for listening. And make sure to leave us a like and review on your favorite listening station. Thank you
Pleasure,
as
pleasure.
always, and make sure to follow the proper paper trail. Thanks for joining me on this episode of The Paper Trail. I hope today's insights help you sharpen your note investing strategies. If you found value in this conversation, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with fellow investors. I'm Chris Seveney, reminding you to keep doing the work, trust the process, and always follow the paper trail. Until next time.